So thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning and making the switch to virtual here. We didn't want to put anyone in danger, so we changed yesterday to all virtual, and we hope that we'll be able to get back together at our next All Partners meeting in, I think that'd be in late May. So thank you all for joining us. I just wanted to kick things off and say a few words about the annual report that recently came out. Hopefully all of you have received that. If not, I think it will be posted on our website. And Nikki's got a QR code up here for it. Wonderful annual report that showed a lot of what we're doing. Thank you, Nikki, and the Place Setting Company for putting this together. I think it's a great summary, both for us, and if you have people asking you about the health sector partnership and what we do, and this would be a great document or tool for you to send out to them that gives a great summary of the things that happened in the last year. There's highlights on both what the Behavioral Health Committee has accomplished in the last year, what the Workforce Committee has accomplished. There's a summary of the Healthcare in Your Future Summit and the work that we did there. Not quite the nursing conference that happened shortly after the beginning of the year, but there was a lot of work going on for that in 2022, and it was a great success. So that will be featured in our 2023 annual report. So if you would take time to check that out, and like I say, if you have other folks you'd like to share it with, it's a great document to share it and explain what the healthcare sector partnership does. So thank you. Also wanted to update everyone and put up the names of the folks that are on the leadership team for the healthcare sector partnership. We've had some additions to the team, some changeover in the team. So wanted to put this out there, and so that you're aware of who the leadership team is. If you have questions or you have ideas about things, these would be the folks you would reach out to. Again, our names are listed on the website and how to get a hold of us. The chairs of each of the committees, behavioral health, are part of this. Allie Steiner is the chair of the Behavioral Health Committee. Myself and Chris Houston are the co-chairs of the Workforce Committee. So, and you could feel free to reach out to anyone on this committee. Jonas McKinley heads up the Outreach and Communication Committee. So these are the folks who are guiding the health sector partnership and the folks that you would want to get a hold of if you have questions or ideas. Nikki, I think all of this, as you were saying, these slides, the information from today, you'll share that out at some point after the meeting. So know that you'll get all this information at some point. You don't have to write everything down. Great. So in lieu of committee updates, because we wanted to spend most of our time on our topics today, we're doing these somewhat in a written form or electronically. So again, you can use the QR code and go and view the update flyer. That will give you all the information of what's going on recently with the different committees, with workforce, with behavioral health, and many of the events that are going on. So this worked well, especially now that we did virtual. We're not going to do a presentation or go over the highlights in this meeting. We just did them written, and you can find them here. All right, Nikki, we're ready to move on. We've got more. This is how to get a hold of us. I think I mentioned this earlier. So this is how you can reach out to folks more directly. Along with these are the dates and times of each of the meetings that take place. If you're wanting to help out and join in on one of the committees, feel free to reach out to the co-chairs, and they'll make sure Nikki puts you on the email distribution list if you're not already. And I know our workforce committees meetings happen virtually. Now we're still doing that to make it convenient for folks. And if you reach out to behavioral health, Allie can probably tell you how they're meeting these days. All right, Nikki, what else do we have before we get started? All right, I'm going to pass it over, hand it off to Carol Salter, who's with Larimer County. And Carol was the main person behind organizing the nursing consortium meeting. I know she had a lot of help, and she'll probably talk about that. It was a wonderful success this last February 2nd, and got a lot of great feedback from that. So Carol, do you want to share the highlights of that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Evan. Again, I'm Carol Salter. I'm the Nursing Shortage Program Manager for Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. So Nikki, if you'll just advance. We'll talk a little bit about the Nurse Wellbeing Conference. This is really an outgrowth of the Nursing Education and Industry Consortium that Melissa Henry chairs. And they had two areas that they really wanted to focus on. One was education, and the other was the well-being of nurses. And as their committee is working on this, I'm talking to nurses and talking to healthcare entities and asking, what is a concern? What are things that we feel like we could work on? And retention and engagement was an area that we were asked to focus on. So as an outgrowth of all these different forces coming together, the Nurse Wellbeing Conference was conceptualized. And obviously I couldn't do anything like this on my own. And I had this amazing planning committee organized of Corey Scheiderman and Jennifer Higgins of UC Health, Julia Gentry and Julie Rojas of Banner, Shelley Fisher with CU Anschutz, Melissa Henry was our liaison on this committee. And then we had Kara Pappas, and I saw her on the call or on the meeting. She was our MC, and she's with the McKee Wellness Foundation as their executive director, and she did an amazing job. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then obviously we couldn't do anything without Nikki Lucas and the Place Setting Company. She really was the glue that pulled everything, that held everything together, and just did an amazing job with this. When you have a bunch of people that are really dedicated and passionate about nurses and about nursing, and you bring them together and they have connections and resources, you can create a powerful event. We had for our inaugural event, which was to inspire, support, honor our nurses. We had over 150 nurses and nursing students and leadership in attendance. And it ranged from nursing students to doctors of nurse practitioner, the full range of nurses, and also from nursing students to nurses that had been in the industry for 40 years. So we had this wide range of ages and roles that participated. Because we offered 5.5 credit hours or contact hours for nurses, they had to complete a survey in order to get those contact hours, which was great because we had a really good cross-section of feedback regarding the effectiveness of the conference and if it met their needs. And over almost 90% agreed or strongly agreed that it enhanced their learning. So that's something that we wanted to make sure that we made this valuable for our nurses. We began the day, I contacted every chief nursing officer and director of nursing I could find and invited them to attend to start the day to thank nurses, in particular for the last 3 years, but just to genuinely thank them for the work that they do. And that was a great way to start our conference. And then our keynote speaker was Kathleen Flattery. She is a brigadier general, and she runs the combat trauma department for CU in Denver, and just gave practical, she started really heavy, like this is heavy work, but ended up with just very practical and uplifting tools and resources. We had breakout sessions with Center for Nursing Excellence with Deb Center and the Ripple Effect. And then Shelley Fisher did with CU Anschutz did Heart Math. We came back together for lunch, and we had Brian Sexton, who's he's the director for like nurse wellbeing with Duke University. And just even though he zoomed in, he was just very engaging, energizing, and again, gave us access to tools and resources for the nurses. and then finished with Stephanie Singh and Sean Whitney with CSU. And they are with the Trauma and Resilience Department, and just made everybody stand up and breathe, and gave us good tools and resources for stress and burnout as well. Some of the testimonials, oh, and the last thing we did is that we had actual patients coming in and stood up in front of the nurses and thanked them for the care that they received. And I think that was probably as impactful as anything else to receive that genuine thanks. Some of the testimonials from nursing students: I'll be graduating in May. I have resources going forward, or as a result, I will make well-being a priority without guilt, as I now understand how and why it will improve my professional practice. And then that night, I received a text from one of my friends who wasn't at the conference, but her friend who is a nurse was. And she commented that she attended the event today and she loved every piece of the event, but her biggest takeaway was the message of the event. She was starting to get that burnt out feeling, and she walked away feeling completely motivated and re-energized. She is absolutely grateful for the opportunity to attend and wanted to thank all those who organized it. So that was really icing on the cake from an actual nurse who said, "Hey, I was feeling like I might be done with this," and was completely redirected from that. One of the really impactful things about, and I'm almost done, I promise, Evan. One of the impactful things was the amount of community sponsorship that we received. You know, it's not cheap to put a conference like this on, and our speakers were nationally known speakers. And we had amazing support from the McKee Wellness Foundation as our presenting sponsor. Kara, the executive director, her mother is an ICU nurse and has been a nurse for 40 years. And she commanded instant credibility with that comment. And the nurses understood that she knew what they're going through and what their lives are like. And then I'm grateful for UNC School of Nursing's donation as well. But what was amazing to the nurses was all of the community sponsorship. If you look at all the cities and counties and chambers and trusts that sponsored, as well as the healthcare industry, Banner and UC Health and Columbine and the Northern Colorado Long-Term Care Acute and Rehab Hospitals, and then World Trust and the McKee Foundation, and then again, all of our partners. And I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm going to say them all: Ames and UNC and CU and Larimer County and Weld County and the city of Johnstown and the city of Windsor and Fort Collins and Loveland and Greeley and the Fort Collins Chamber and the Loveland Chamber. And I think I said Columbine, but I think that's everybody. So I'm so grateful for everyone's support for the nurses. And we ended with this really great book that we provided of 365 days of self-care. So just being able to promote that. If we had nurses coming up to us after the conference saying, "Can we be on your planning committee next year?" So I think that indicates that we will be replicating this again. There is a need to encourage and honor and inspire our healthcare partners. And so I'm just grateful our subcommittee could do that. And I think that's it, Evan. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Drop me a note in the chat, or just give me a call on my cell. I'm happy to talk to you.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Great summary. And a great event. I just saw many positive comments and thank yous on social media as well. So I know people enjoyed what you guys did. So next, Nick Peterson with Poudre School District and Yvonne Myers are going to share some information with us about the PSD Educator Summer Externship Program. I think they have a video, and then they're also going to share some information about the program and how you can get involved if you'd like. So, is Nick going to start with that, or we're going to start with the video?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm here. Yeah, I appreciate that. It would be a little smoother if I was there in person. So thank you. And thanks, Nikki, for queuing up the website. We can go ahead and share a link in the chat too. But if you just Google PSD externships, it'll be one of the first things that come up. And I think what we're doing is we're in the season right now where we are recruiting business partners to provide externships for PSD staff members. And quick and dirty, an externship is basically a 40-hour experience where a business hosts an educator from mainly Poudre School District, and they learn all the different aspects of your business and kind of build a bridge to their practice as an educator. And we definitely are looking to build out more educator externship positions because we have a lot. We're creating these introduction to health science classes in our schools to meet the rising demand. Healthcare is the #3 interest in our high school students based on our data. And so we're trying to kind of build out both that awareness and knowledge and kind of that cutting edge practice on the educator side, as well as eventually internship opportunities and things on the work-based learning continuum. So this is just an important part of that ecosystem. And Nikki, I think you're mirroring a different site if you have a second monitor, but if you're able to maybe pull up the website of the externships, I can show a couple points about some of the advantages, and I think that'll set us up to play the video too. But basically, we see externships as a way to build a bridge between education and business. And I really want to thank Yvonne Myers for this, because we did not have this program funded anymore coming out of the pandemic. Some things were reorganized. It was originally started in PSD, and Yvonne was kind of like the savior. And I said, hey, I really want to do this. And she's like, I think that there's enough value for business where we can kind of go out and get it funded elsewhere. And so we're really lucky, and she can talk more about the mechanisms through which she did that and how this happens. But, we're able to pay the staff members to participate this. So it makes it extra lucrative, so they can give up 40 hours-ish over their summer. And I should say, when I'm on that point, that those hours are flexible. We usually do it during June and July. So we'll play the video in a second. You can see I made the website painfully obvious. There's like 3 different places where, as a business partner, you can click on a form, and it'll just ask you some kind of key information if you're interested in providing an externship position. And that's all you have to do for now. And then Yvonne and/or I will be in touch with you to set it up with the logistics and all that. But yeah, I'll just list, in case you can't see it if the screen is small, the business benefits of an externship are to create meaningful connections with educators, to provide information and feedback to educators to support your future workforce needs. We're lacking in terms of meaningful professional developments for our educators, especially in CTE fields, especially in healthcare. And so this is a really important part of that toolbox in terms of bolstering their practice as educators. It helps develop an understanding of the curriculum that supports your industry as well. So there's a really good information exchange during that 40-hour externship experience. It's great for networking. And it's a great way, if you're inclined as a business to want to support schools, I think, in a creative way that you may not have thought of. And what I think is really cool is I've added some requirements as the person that administrates this on the PSD side, that we really want the educators to share their experience, not just through their practice with their students, but with their colleagues and in their buildings and in their departments. So that way it can have an impact that ripples through our system. And so on this website, I'll share it in the chat as soon as I'm done talking, or maybe somebody else can. Again, you can click on the parts that are highlighted in that yellow color to register. But towards the top is the video that I think you'll be about to see. And then you can see it on the screen. There's a click here to view educator externship summary videos. That's a requirement as well, that we wanted them to kind of summarize their experience in about a minute or so video, so it can be kind of a living archive. So you can see what our class of externs that resurrected the program did this last year. And we're just going to continue to improve upon that model. And we wanted to recognize our partners who have done this since 2015. So you can see the list there. And we hope your business considers adding into that. So I just talked a lot. Yvonne, do you want to chime in on any of that or help talk more about the business side?
Sure. When I was at Columbine Health Systems, we actually took summer interns for about 4 summers, these extern teachers. And I didn't have a bad experience ever with any of the teachers. You will find that teachers are self-starters, they're highly motivated, they're great communicators, they come with this curiosity, and they come with passion for learning for their students. And many of them have not, they've not been in the world of work, right? They decided to be a teacher in second grade, and then they went to school to be a teacher, and they're not current with what's happening in your world of work and the different jobs that you have. And we had a career counselor who was with us one summer who wanted to spend time with every single kind of employee that we had to learn what motivates them and what kind of person should be a biller, what kind of person should be in medical records, who should run a building, who should be your maintenance, and left with great ideas about that. We had a student or a teacher from who works with disabled students and those with emotional opportunities, and really learned what roles they could play in healthcare as well. We had one teacher who said, I think I'm going to retire and I want to be an activity director in an independent living. So that's where she spent some time there. So this last summer at the chamber, we took a teacher, Jim Becker's daughter, Olivia, who's a Spanish teacher at Wellington Middle High. And as it turned out, because teachers are, there's not enough and they're having shortages like we all are, she was asked to teach a psychology class as well as a health career opportunities class, career exploration, I think it's called. And so she's like, I don't know much about that. Well, having connected with me through that, when she started her semester, I reached out to Allie Steiner and Summit Stone and Caroline Bunn and said, here are folks that are in the mental health space that could maybe work with you. And then when she got to career exploration, she actually asked the students, what careers do you want to learn about? Had a list, and I reached out to my healthcare contacts and connected her with those students. So with people in the community for her students. So the externship lasts longer than the 40 hours you have in the summer. You now have made a connection with a teacher who can now reach out to you, could come to you might be a speaker in their classroom. That teacher touches the lives of 200, 250 students, right? And will every year touch that many students. And so can really speak to the work that you all do. And so it is highly worth it. You have an 8-week period of the teacher must come sometime for 40 hours and you work that out with them and your schedule. So it's super flexible. And again, I've never not had a teacher that just wasn't just amazing at all to do. So we've set up a system between Nick and I where we're raising funds. I was visiting with Bohemian and Otter Cares yesterday evening to see if we could get more dollars. We want to be able to provide you that $1,000 for you to try it. If it's your first time to say, let me see if this will work for my healthcare organization. And then if it does, we hope next year you'll just ask for $500 and you'll pay the $500. And pretty soon we will embed teachers in this program as well. I think the video really speaks to it. There's a section I'll lift it up with somebody who was at Columbine who said, I've always been able to, give medical terminology, but now I actually have stories to add to it so that her education is richer as well. And another side effect I saw at Columbine that I didn't expect was our employees we all love talking about our careers. We all love somebody to learn about why we're in this job and what motivates us in this job and why do we come back every day. And so there's this side benefit of your employees really. A teacher came and spoke to me. I have a friend who was at Columbine, and last summer she said they asked me to speak to the teacher, and she was absolutely thrilled to be part of that. So I'll just add the plug for you should say yes. It's worth it very much in the end for your business as well as for teachers and for students.
I'm Travis Lisher with New Works Mechanical. I'm the Vice President COO, and we're a plumbing company in Northern Colorado.
I'm Michael Pelfrey with Asselin Construction.
My name is Yvonne Myers. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce.
Well, it's a really important aspect to get connected to students in our local school district. The way that happens is that, it puts you right in the driver's seat. It puts a plumbing torch in your hand, and you're allowed to actually see what the process of installing a plumbing system is.
I've learned what's available in my community, and I learned and got to experience what plumbing means and what a plumber does.
We've got a butterfly valve here, which allows you to shut off this situation.
And I'd love for the trades to be looked at not as a second option, but a really good first option.
Without that experience, you'll never get to change the stigma or the perception. You'll just be always like, well, this is what I see on TV, or this is what I see in the comic books, or whatever the funny thing is to have a joke about plumbing.
I mean, it employs people all the way from high school dropouts to PhD graduates.
I'm Kelsey Berger. I'm doing my externship with Wilbur's Total Beverage, and I'm going through and cold calling all of the businesses, local businesses that we're hoping to get donations for. Good. Hey, I'm calling on behalf of Pathways Hospice regarding their 20th annual.
So these past few days have really shown me what my students will eventually be doing. Everything from office administrative work to on the field supervisory work to in the trenches work.
Having the summers off, I look at that as a time to grow rather than really being off work. And growing outside of just what we do in school is a really useful perspective to have.
So I can teach them the basic content and what a certain word means, but to be able to give them a story and an application of why it's useful in healthcare will be super helpful.
Physically show that they know how to wash their hands.
Okay.
And for them to take this time in the summer to learn about business, to learn about different businesses, different career pathways, helps them to be better teachers. I truly believe that. I think we also as the business get a connection with what teachers know and don't know and how we can help them to know more as well, so we can help them with their students.
If kids are graduating and sorting out what direction they're going, if they're interested in construction, then we want people to be conscious of us as an option for people. And
we can work with them to show that there's a sustainable career right here locally where you get to make a community impact.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So in the chat, there are 2 links. The first link is to our externship website that has those highlighted yellow links. And so if you or your business or anybody oh, thank you, Allie, for the compliment in the video. We like it too. So yeah, please, if you're inclined, take a look at that website. Feel free to look more or share this information, and go ahead and fill out that form. Yvonne and I are kind of administering this from the back end, and I'm super grateful for her and all her work with helping make sure that these are funded and everything. We want our partners to register and providing by March 31st is what we've said, because then that lets us kind of organize, and then we move on into the educator recruitment. And I don't know if you saw in the video, but we had a media specialist doing a welding internship with New Works. And like Yvonne said, that our educators impact lots of students. If they're a teacher, it's over 200. A media specialist, she knew everybody in the whole Preston Middle School, and she's doing maker spaces and stuff. So it's a chance to have tremendous impact. And we've rebranded it as educator externs because we want to open it up to all licensed folks. We had an administrator. I don't know if you saw noticed that we had a dean, and appropriately she was in the liquor store doing her externship. And so we've tried to do some good matchmaking this last year, but what we're going to do this year is have our educators directly apply for the positions that we build. So I think we'll have even more compelling matches, and we're really going to be trying to find just the best match, and the educators that are going to have the best impact for the positions that you provide. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be including folks in on the selection process, and that'll happen sometime in late April. And then what we'll do is we'll have kind of a kickoff meeting where we do the introductions and all that. And then you and the extern are free, like Yvonne said, to plan it out in hours that work for you over the summer. As long as they total up to about 40, we will be set. So
great. Thank you guys both. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Yvonne. And I hope folks participate in this year. I did one this last summer, and I tell you, it was valuable for me as well. It sounds like it was valuable for the teacher, but we got a lot out of it as well. So next, Sandra Jackham with Larimer County is going to give us a real quick update on the Career Rise Summer Internship Program, which I think very recently had some success and got those positions filled. And I think Sandra's going to talk about that, and then how the program's going and how you can get involved if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm with Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development, and our department comes in and administers this on behalf of the sector partnership. So I really feel like this is a sector partnership program. It comes out of initiatives out of the workforce committee, and we're just happy to be able to support it. So again, the health sector partnership is supporting this year's program. It is for 16 to 18-year-olds. We have always had 5 positions available in the summer, and we generally get 150 to 200 students applying for these 5 positions. So for all of you healthcare providers on this call, students want to come to your organization. They want to work, they want to gain experience. And so we always encourage healthcare providers to engage in these opportunities. The way that this program works is the sector partnership comes in to support half of the cost for hosting that intern for 250 hours over the summer. And then the host business covers the other half of the cost. And then the program itself is administered by Larimer County Economic and Workforce Development. So the student actually is onboarded to our department, and we're running payroll and covering workers' comp. So it's a really easy plug and play program for a healthcare provider to engage. I am pleased to say that as of yesterday, we have filled all 5 positions. However, if we have any healthcare providers that just want to participate in the program and are open to paying the full cost, I'm happy to add your position. You have until Friday of this week if you want to create opportunities for high school students. And we'll go out and market and collect applications and help administer that young person for the summer. So I'm excited because we have some really cool positions this year. We have HR admin position at NCMC in Greeley. We have one at McKee Medical Center in Loveland. Columbine Health Systems in Fort Collins is going to have a personal care provider assistant who's going to get to support the PCPs, the CNAs, the RNs, anybody who needs the help and support. And so that young person's going to get some really great experience and even earn a PCP certification. And then we also have a couple of positions with Summit Stone Health Partners. I'm really excited about this. Those young folks are going to help support the creation of peer support groups through Summit Stone. And was able to work an event last night where parents and students were there. And had a young lady who came up to me and said, I'm really interested in healthcare. And I got to talk with her about this internship program. And she just got so excited about those opportunities and was walking away giddy, with the thought of like, I could get one of those. And so it's fun to be on that end of it. But for those businesses that participate, they always have really great experiences. The youth end up outperforming expectations. And I'm really hoping we can grow this opportunity for students, because if you can capture them and bring them into your organization while they're in high school, there is a higher likelihood that they are going to remain in that industry after they leave high school. So the more we can engage young folks, the more likely you're going to have a stronger pipeline for your workforce. So excited about this. Stay tuned. We always report out throughout the summer and at the end of the program on the successes of it. And again, if you're interested in hosting, I'm happy to talk with you about it.
Whoops, made the mute mistake. Sorry about that, folks. Thank you, Sandra, for that update, and congratulations on getting that building in this summer. Great job. We're going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about some recent grant funding and grant updates. And Jim Becker with the Place Setting Company is going to help us here. One of the first things you'll learn about is we had some success, and with the help of the Fort Collins Chamber and a lot of other folks involved, Jim will talk about that. Jim himself, we were successful in getting a grant to help with work-based learning initiatives here in Northern Colorado. And we're going to do that in partnership with the other sector partnerships in Northern Colorado. You'll hear a little bit about that. And, shameless plug on this or shameless, what we're leading up to, we're going to have a breakout session here in a little bit, and we're going to talk about what work-based learning ideas we can generate now that we have this money. We're going to need help from both our workforce partners and our public partners to carry out the initiatives that we put in the grant. And Jim will explain a little bit about that. And then at the end of this, we're going to have some breakout sessions and do a little brainstorming and question and answers. So Jim, would you like to set this up with some information about the grant received and what else is on the horizon?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good morning, everyone. For those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Jim Becker, and I work as part of the place setting company team, particularly around grant writing and resource development on behalf of all of the sector partnerships in Northern Colorado. And you all have had some success lately. I'm going to talk really briefly about one grant, but first I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about this work-based learning incentive program grant, because it's one of our good successes in the region. Back in December, the Fort Collins Chamber applied on behalf of all 5 sector partnerships in Northern Colorado to be the grant administrator and the intermediary for a state grant called the Work-Based Learning Incentive Program. So Nikki's going to help me flip through about 6 or 7 slides real quickly that explain that and explain its importance to the health sector partnership. And that will kind of set the stage for what Evan wants to talk about more and the breakout sessions. So this is actually ARPA funding that goes through the state of Colorado. Go ahead, Nikki. And the Work-Based Learning Incentive Program grant that we received, it was for $500,000 that will be administered through the chamber as the fiscal agent, the intermediary, and it's to benefit all of Region 2. And there's some emphasis areas on employers that are rural or small businesses. It can involve work-based learners that are both youth and adults. And it's a very fast timeline. It needs to be done in about a year. And think of it in terms of about $100,000 and about maybe 10 new businesses involved in the health sector side of things. Go ahead, Nikki. But this does cross all 5 sector partnerships. And, you know, what we'd like to do is involve at least 10 employers in health sector to either be new work-based learning sites or to what I'll call up your game. And I'll explain that in a minute, but there's 3 levels of how you would be involved as a work-based learning site. And if, for instance, in the past, you've already done tours, but you'd like to do more like host an intern or maybe even host a full-timer, you know, get like 1,500 hours of work-based experience for someone, that would be upping your game to higher levels in this grant. Go ahead, Nikki. So there's 3 levels. There's about work, and that would be hosting tours for a group or, you know, doing a 4-hour session with a small group or an individual. There's through work, and that would be a higher level internship that could be even be up to 500 to 600 hours over time. And then there is at work, which is a more intensive level. We'll talk about that in a couple of slides. In all cases, there's some structure, there's some paperwork, there's really what this grant is intended to do is get you as industry partners and employers, especially smaller and rural employers, to be to get some infrastructure in your organization and to be a good workplace-based learning site. And you get an incentive payment for doing that once you're involved. Go ahead, please. So the 3 levels again, you know, the observation, the job previews, the interviewing, that would be learning about work. Learning through work would be more project-based or an internship at a minimum level of hours. And then learning at work would be more of a long-term potentially a long-term or more intensive placement or apprenticeship. And in all of the, in all of these, the idea is to get you a more qualified workforce and do employee development. Go ahead, please. Again, this is more detail from the state, and where we're at in the grant right now is we were notified that that the chamber was selected for funding. We don't have a contract yet. We don't have all the details of it, and the timeline is being adjusted based on when contracts come out. So as an employer, if you're interested in doing this, we'll just want you to connect with me or Nikki or Yvonne at the chamber, and we'll kind of get a list of potential folks to move forward with these things. But these are the kind of levels you could choose. I would choose a level that's maybe a notch up from where you are now, is honestly how I would do it as an employer. Go ahead, please, Nikki. There is a metric sheet that shows, there's certain things as a work-based learning site that you would need to do. And, it includes an outline of what would happen. It's not just a vague tour where you bring students through for 30 minutes or something. There's some structure to each level, but there's also incentive dollars for each level. So for instance, if you were at the lower level, the learning about work, once you've done that experience, you can apply to the chambers, the intermediary, for something like up to $3,500 or as a reimbursement for the time that your employment site puts into doing this. And then the chambers, the intermediary, processes the paperwork, sends it on to the state, and distributes payments. If you were doing a more intensive learning at work, it could be up to $6,000 in incentive for you as the employer. If you were doing a learning at work, most intensive, it could be up to $10,000 or $12,000 under certain circumstances for participating in this. And frankly, our idea is that as employers, you develop the infrastructure so that you continue to do this in future years. Maybe you'll connect up with Sandra, or you'll connect up with someone else and continue to be a work-based site, over time. Go ahead, please. So we're going to provide more information once the grant gets more structured and the paperwork comes out, but we'd like to have some conversation about who's interested, about what barriers you see, about what things you could offer, and we're going to talk about those things in a minute. Evan will go into that in more detail. But I also wanted to update on one other grant that was pending. There's been a lot of work put in by the leadership team, by the workforce development team, and by a special group that got together to develop a letter of intent to apply for that Opportunity Now funding. And that funding was specifically for the health sector partnership. We developed a letter of intent to go to the state on that major grant that's pending. It was submitted on time with the Chamber of Commerce acting as the fiscal agent. And their timeline was, as of last Friday, they were to give an update on that. They did give an update, and the update is they received more than 400 letters of intent for this funding, and they're still working through them. So I believe Yvonne at the chamber received a notice that we're still under consideration, but we don't know anything more than that at this point, and I think the next.
Well, that's not quite true.
Oh, okay.
So there are three, did you say 3 levels? Sorry, I might've been veering off. I'm trying to eat breakfast here too. So there's a scale grant where you could write up to 12 million, and then there's seed grants up to 1.5 million, and then planning grants. And you all wrote for a $2 million scale grant. And they said, we find your letter of intent very interesting. We don't think you're at the scale grant level. We are considering you for a seed grant. So that lowers it down in the level, and you should find out on March 3rd if you can now move forward to write a proposal under the seed grant.
So the good news is we're still in the running on it somehow. So
thank you, Jim. That was great. So we did this as a lead in to these conversations we're going to have. And as you Jim mentioned, the Fort Collins Chamber is the fiscal agent for all of these, and this grant that we just received is going to be done in partnership with the other sector partnerships in Northern Colorado. And Yvonne, I think you had a bit more information about that you wanted to share. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. Jim did an excellent job of explaining everything to you all. We will be hiring a staff member. So part of the grant is $400,000 for payments to business and $100,000 to run the program. So it's going to be pretty intensive paperwork situation. And they told us to be sure we were going to do the paperwork for the business to make it easier for all of you. So we will be hiring someone. As Jim said, we were to learn on December 23rd if we got the grant or not, and they didn't tell us till February 10th. The grant's only 16 months. So we're still trying to learn, do we get 16 months or have we lost 2 months in the situation? So May 24th may not be, of 2024 may not be the end. We don't know that yet, but we wrote it in partnership with all of the sector partnerships, as well as Weld County Workforce System and Larimer counties, as well as CareerWise and other partners in the system. So we need to, in 16 months, disperse $400,000 to industry. And this came from Senator Coleman. It's Senate Bill 22-140. And I think it's just interesting to learn the background. They took ARPA funds and gave $3 million for this work. Senator Coleman said he grew up in 5 Points in Denver, and had it not been for the Boys and Girls Club, where he was around mentors and had shadow experiences and learned about different opportunities than what he had living in 5 Points, he would not be the man he is today. And we applied as the chamber to show proof of concept that if you are incentivized as a business, if you can get some payment back for investments in doing job shadows and in doing in internships, but also that you are paid to transition this work to creating your work pipeline, then it'll work, right? We can change the system and we can give students and adult learners these experiences. And as Sandra put in the chat, if you're thinking about doing an internship, now's the time and take advantage of this money you're going to get. We also want to proof of concept to maybe make this a tax credit. Like if you do work-based learning as a business, you get tax credit, because writing grants and giving you monies that way is the most expensive, inefficient way to pay for this work. So I really, really encourage you all to play. We will be giving you more information, and we will have a part-time staff member. They'll be probably 3 days a week working on this work with you. So we look forward to partnering with you and letting Jim know is great, or Nikki, but really you'll be working directly with the chamber on this work as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. That's very good information and a great lead into this next section that we're going to do. So in a minute or two, Nikki is going to push us into some breakout rooms, and there'll be somebody from the sector partnership in there to somewhat facilitate these. And facilitators, you'll have the ability to record in your breakout room. So if you would please do that, or if you're a copious note taker, that's fine too, or both. So the reason we're breaking out is to start some question and answer and some brainstorming exactly about this topic of work-based learning. We'd like to hear from the sector partnership or the industry partners at the table. Get at these first 3 questions that you see on the screen, and you can veer off and do different versions of this. But we really would like to try and find out, how can your business or a business incorporate work-based learning into your organization? Yvonne just shared some, so did Sandra. What are the barriers that you're experiencing, and how can we possibly help you overcome those? And then what help would you maybe need to accommodate this? And I think what would be a great help in that is then with our public partners at the table, they might be willing and able to share some ideas, some early ideas of how they can help with this. And as Yvonne just mentioned, we're going to have dedicated people to help with this. And so how can we help industry partners to incorporate this into their world and start doing this? The funding is now there, or is going to be there. We have our public partners to help us. So let's start thinking about how we can expand this. So Nikki has put the questions in the chat to help remind us all. And so are there any questions maybe before we get started as to what we're doing here? Any questions from the facilitators? Great, okay. So if you would, Nikki, I guess it's going to invite us to a room. Is that what's going to happen here? And just head off into there, and we're going to spend the next 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes talking about these questions. All right. Did we get everybody back, Nikki? All right. Thank you all for doing that. Great conversation in our group, and I'm sure you all had some too. I think for the next 5-10 minutes, we just wanted to ask the facilitator in each group to maybe share just one or two highlights from that. I think we've got it all recorded, and I think we'll be able to share those ideas with everybody. So Nikki shared with me the group leaders. So maybe I'll pick on someone, or maybe I'll go first. Let's do that. Isn't that so? We had a great group, two folks from Columbine, Kara from the Key Foundation, and Jim and I, and also Kelly Greb, who works interesting for a staffing company. So we had a real great perspective there. But I think what came out of ours were a lot of the things that Columbine is doing that I think could be shared with other employers around apprenticeships, and also working very closely with Front Range Community College as an education partner. And so we'll have those recorded. Jenny shared one thing that she's having a lot of success with, of taking a program. She actually goes to the schools and presents that, and the interest has gone up. It sounded like threefold, which I'm sure we can share. She might be willing to share that with folks. So those were a few of the highlights from our group. Carol, it sounds like you helped facilitate a group. Can you share what was happening there?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Evan. And we had a really great discussion. We had one industry partner and the rest were public or education. So we had different perspectives, but Michael shared with a statistic with us that 80% of incentives that are currently offered are not utilized because it's difficult to bring people in and have them job shadow or do the things that they need to do. So just encouraging folks to take advantage of opportunities that we have. And then from an economic standpoint, how beneficial it is for retention and for attraction of new businesses to know that they have opportunities like this when they're moving into an area or they're growing their business. So just really good discussion on both sides of the aisle.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Anna, would you mind sharing what happened in your group?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we had Tim with NoCo Health Alliance, sorry. We had Betsy with Emergency Physicians, Erica with KHEC, and then Thomas with CWDC. So we had a good mix between industry and public partners. From the industry perspective, starting with being available and doing tours. Tim mentioned that they actually currently do a program where they have students come in and it's like 3 or 4 hours and doing like a work interview. So meeting with different areas, and so they get a perspective of what they do and everything on different positions. And then Betsy was talking about, they were already talking about this too. They struggle with getting PAs that are experienced in the ER. So they're starting to develop a program, or thinking about developing a program, where they will do a 6-month program of specifically training PAs in the emergency room. And so maybe this is something that they could tie in with the grant. So different ideas that were already in the planning and or expanding. And Thomas does a lot of work at CWDC with career pathways. They have many connections with higher ed and other entities. So he sees his role as kind of a connector, and helping with connecting industry with other entities, so that can help with the ideas that go on. Erica pointed out a program that they have at KHEC. It's their Hope Camp, which they bring high school students and they meet once a week or once a month. I can't remember the frequency, but for a year. And then they have the opportunity to do a week-long camp at UC Anschutz campus, and they meet with all different areas of healthcare. It's for all their 12 counties in Northeast Colorado that they served. So they serve a lot of rural students. So how we can maybe expand that kind of program with this grant. So that's what we were talking about.
Great. Thank you. John, thanks for helping us out with this. John McKay from Summit Stone. Would you mind sharing what you guys did?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It was great to have such a well-versed group, not only in experience, but we actually talked about the transparency of the changing landscape of industry, and how some of these externships really were because of a workforce shortage. And this is an opportunity for pipeline development. This is also an opportunity to start thinking about how to be more fluid. And so we mentioned even the growing demographic of young people, even over 25, thanks to Ozzy's perspective of having a CSU student, being able to say that people over 25 are kind of seen as like older generation. And so, I think the term was dinosaur, and Caroline was gracious enough to say that dinosaurs are cool. But I think that we also really had to think about the connections. And Jeff has some really great perspective on his own development and training, and how he has people that he trains for his industry. And so a great connection between Nick and Jeff, and being able to think about how could we do workforce development training even at the high school level, so that they would have people readily available for workforce and hireability coming right out of high school. And so a great connection there. Also, Angie from Front Range gave us some wonderful perspective related to their experience of placing interns, some of the soft skills that students are lacking, as well as some of the things that they have. So it was a great conversation and opportunity to have some connections, and Ozzy was able to articulate for us just the industry technology perspective and what that needs to look like even globally. So, here in Northern Colorado, we have an opportunity to make an impact through a global lens, and not just through here and impact locally. And so thinking about what are the appropriate placements? Are they community-based programs? In healthcare, we have a lot of privacy that we want to uphold. And so where's the appropriate place to be able to have interns come in and provide that support? So it was a great conversation. I think that we could have kept going, but I do appreciate the great insight and expertise and wisdom that our group provided in a short space. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Great thinking there. And then Yvonne, I think you had that final group.
Yep, we were group 1 though, just saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just teasing. Yay.
All the groups are number 1.
I know, right, of course. So we had great conversation. We had a wide variety of folks in our group too. So Nikki did a good job dividing us up. And so Dr. Longenecker at UNC with the new med school talked about, I loved her language. She called it touch points. So thinking about in 5th grade and 5th graders to 8th grade coming and on a regular basis having touch points with healthcare, maybe in middle school, then doing more sort of exploration, and then maybe senior in high school, you're actually spending 2 days in their program. And so that prompted Jordan from District 6 to say, I'm right on. I'm thinking they should be in 5th grade. Like we should really start this in the 5th grade. So that was some great validation between the two of them. And then this real exploration at the middle school level. Craig Lazinski from Village and Associates shared with us that they have 9 clinics now and they hope to double by the end of the year. And of course, what may hold that back is staff, right? And everyone is feeling that pinch, of course. And we were allowed to sort of celebrate that maybe what's happening in Northern Colorado and this coming together and both counties working together and the health sector work that's happening around this work-based learning isn't happening everywhere else in the country. And that the owners of Village MD are not from this region. And so more education Craig might be doing to explain what's happening and what's kind of happening in Colorado and this ecosystem that we're creating as well. It was interesting to learn from Jordan in District 6 in Greeley that they had 300 students for an internship program and that health sciences is the highest interest. And we heard that from Sandra Jackham as well. So here we are, the health sector partnership, and you have the most interest and the most students available to you to help with that pipeline. So it's a good takeaway for today as well. Sheena from Front Range works a lot with Chris Houston on apprenticeship. So they're hoping this summer to start a pre-apprenticeship program for seniors who graduate in May for learning communication in healthcare, terminology, and all the different other healthcare jobs besides doctor and nurse, which are vitally important, but there are other jobs as well. So, and then we rounded out with Terry from the town of Windsor in economic development and just, she was excited about all the things that are happening and trying to connect the businesses that she works with who are talent deprived to try to, connect with the work that's happening here at the sector partnership. And we ended with Dr. Longenecker asking the question, did we see this current generation of healthcare workers not inspired to take on students, feeling like they're overwhelmed, they have a lot to do, and really adding a student to the mix would be too much? And ask the question, I suppose to me more so, did I see that in other industries? And I've not heard it yet. I did experience it at Columbine with certain staff. There's always the best teachers and then there's other staff that are like, oh, heck no, I don't want to do this. But it makes me, I want to lift it up for all of us to see and watch. And if there's sort of this not wanting to do that, that might be another thing we need to work on a little bit. So I end with that.
Great. Thank you, Yvonne. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out on this snowy day, coming out, I guess, in a way, virtually. A lot of great information, and we've recorded all that. So we'll gather that together, and that'll form as a starting place for us as we work into this new grant and into other things going forward. And hopefully we'll get good news about the Opportunity Now grant in the near future, and we will, of course, update you on that. So, Caroline, I think you are gonna wrap things up and end us today. We managed to finish on time, I think. So great. So Caroline is the co-chair of the partnership leadership team and is going to finish off today. So thanks, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Caroline Bunn. I'm a community engagement manager with Unite Us and also co-chair of the health sector partnership. To close this out, Nikki, next slide. Okay. And so thank you to all of our amazing sponsors from City of Fort Collins to UC Health, Kaiser, Emergency Physicians of the Rockies, and we can't forget Summit Stone Health Partners, and again, all of the other amazing sponsors who are listed here. If you would be interested in becoming a sponsor and supporting the work of the health sector partnership, here are your opportunities to do so. We're expanding that as the health sector gets bigger and does more broad work. If you are interested in joining us in that, please email Nikki through the NoCo Health Sector @gmail.com email address. Next slide. And upcoming partner meetings, save the date, mark your calendar for May 24th and August 25th. Again, first thing, bright and early in the morning. I think we're pretty much guaranteed not to have snow, but let's hope we don't have something else that keeps us from being together in person. And we hope to see you at those upcoming meetings. And I think that is all we have this morning. So thanks for popping on Zoom this morning and drinking your coffee together, and great meeting everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Nikki. And thanks everyone.